All right, good evening. We will start this board meeting on March 18th, calling the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kat, do we have anyone for public forum this evening?
We do have one person signed up this evening, Rachel Goldsman. Chris, is she in queue?
All right, we're bringing Ms. Goldsman on, and you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening to the MRH Administrators Board and the community. Thank you for your hard work and dedication in ensuring the safety and education of our children this year. This school year definitely brought many new challenges. I've been really excited and proud of our community's dedicated approach to our layers of protection. Clearly, those layers are working. In addition, it's with great relief that the rate of infection, rate of transmission, and cases per 100,000 of the COVID virus are continuing to decrease. I'm excited to hear the new metrics tonight. I trust the science and our administration to navigate our children's safe return to school. Yet, what concerns me for our students is there seems to be an incredible slowness in creating this plan to return. While I appreciate the education during this time, I know it's not the fullest level of education that our district offers. That requires hands-on, face-to-face, expedition events, discussion, projects. The science seems to imply that it could be time to move back into this type of education, but the discussion doesn't reflect that. Districts around us with varying sizes and resources and are back in school full-time or will be after spring break in various ways. Some have shortened classes to avoid eating lunch. Some have full physical class in the morning and virtual in the afternoon. Some have been able to provide synchronous in-person and virtual. Some have changed nothing but added masks. And these return to schools have not had on-campus spread of the virus. It feels as though our students are getting lost during this time and that their needs are being put second, especially those kids that are 8th grade and younger. Those kids are the least vulnerable to infection and transmission and the most at risk for social, emotional, and educational decline. Our educators have presented and shown that we are ready and willing to move forward to put our students first while maintaining safety. Clearly, our district took a more cautious, purposeful approach to school entry. I applaud that effort, but it's time to move forward. What is next for our students? How are we going to continue to meet the educational needs of our students during this pandemic? The pandemic is ever changing, so should our students' education and learning. We have the knowledge, we have the motivation, we have the innovation. Students are ready, parents are ready, teachers are ready. Please share with us the path forward and before the end of the school year. Please provide concrete steps that are being taken to realize our children's full return to school. Thank you for your time.
All right. I believe that was the only person signed up for public comment. We will move into our agenda then. Can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Brandy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We will get our ITNR update here. Hello, Julie. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. It's great to see everyone this evening. I have a very quick update on some upcoming dates and then a look at phasing. So I'll only need a couple of minutes this evening. Run through this pretty quickly. So here's our project process diagram, and we are very close to the end of construction documentation. I think we have about a week and a half before we will put the documents out to bid. So that's March 29th. Sometime that week or the following week, we will also submit for building permits. We have a April 7th virtual pre-bid meeting for the contractors, and then the bidders will have 2 scheduled opportunities to visit the buildings during bidding. So we'll do those on days when there aren't students and there aren't a lot of faculty in the buildings to allow them to see the things that they need to see to be able to submit accurate bids. We have April 27th identified as the bid opening. We will interview the top 3 or the lowest 3 bidders on April 29th, and then come to you with a recommendation on May 6th at the work session for contract award later that month. The ECC construction is going to start right after summer school. And at the elementary school, we'll begin as soon as the teachers and faculty have cleared out of the building. That building's going to be closed for the summer, so that the admin there will be relocated to the ECC. There's enough space in the ECC, and the construction is limited in scope, so we'll be able to work around faculty and admin in that building and keep it open throughout the summer. Because we wanted to give the students as much normalcy as possible this spring, we pushed the start dates on these back to June. And as a result, we'd identified about 6-month construction for both of those projects. So we will be going into fall and early winter. Hopefully at the ECC, hopefully we'll be out of the building by the time school starts, but there will likely be site work still ongoing. And then the elementary we may still be in the building early fall. But those will be wrapped up by the end of the year. So I have a couple of diagrams here that explain our suggestion for phasing at the high school. This is a suggestion, it's a recommendation, and if the contractors have a significantly better process to do this, we're definitely open to talk to them about that. But we needed to identify for the building occupants and for you all kind of how this process would unfold. So the really critical things at the high school are that the addition can't start, the big addition can't start until the utilities are moved. So all these red boxes out here are transformers, the cooling tower, the big utility pieces that we'll need to move before we can start digging the hole for the addition. So the yellow identified here is the longest phase. Basically, this space here will pretty much need throughout construction. Inside the building, we've identified things that will be done, a couple of small things that will be done this summer and finished up by the end of this summer. A longer phase that will go until the end of the year, that's the orange. So we'll be working in the boiler room area until the end of the year. Longer phase then that will go through next summer. And then the big piece, we have identified August of 2023, July or August of 2023. So that may be able to be improved upon, but we don't want to overpromise. And also there's not that much advantage to kind of a mid-year move. So we know that we will have the addition as well as all of this interior renovation work finished up by the time school starts in August of 2023. So again, this is a recommendation. We will provide these diagrams and documents to the contractor. In the end, the schedule is theirs to own and modify as needed. And you can see this is fairly complicated, so communication is going to be critical. That's going to be really important that we stay in communication with the contractor and you all as far as all of these moving pieces within this big project. Any questions this evening?
Thanks, Julie. I know you spent a lot of time with us, just a few weeks ago. Appreciate this update on potential scheduling for the work, and glad to hear that ECC and elementary will be moving along quickly here, and obviously there's a lot more work to do at the high school. So,
Yep. Great.
all
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. We have an update on E-rate, and I think Chris is delivering that this evening.
Yes, this is just a quick verbal update on where we are in the process. We are still in the bid window, so I don't have anything to bring to you for approval this evening. So the next time we meet that you meet as a board, I will likely need to ask you to approve our recommendations for the coming year on category 2 and 1 E-rates. So we'll have, we will have our switches, our core switches, auxiliary switches, and also battery backups, as well as our category 1 services, the managed fiber between the buildings, and internet services to our main site and also our auxiliary central office site.
Great, thanks for keeping us up to date on that and for working to get us the best opportunities there. We're next going to have a assessment update presentation. Roxana, do you want to frame that?
Rachel Ward is here to do the assessment presentation. We come every year this time of year to talk with you about assessment plans for the following year. This year, you're aware that we did decline to do some of the assessment that we normally do. We did the bare minimum we needed to make sure that we could keep up with our RTI processes and meet student needs. So I'm going to let Rachel talk to you about what a more normal year looks like in terms of assessment, and she's got some updates for you from DESI as well.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rachel Ward, Coordinator of Assessment, Data, and Accountability for the district. Chris, should I share my screen? I have not yet to figure out how to share the presentation in Zoom, so I apologize in advance. You'll have to look at just a big picture of it. Sorry. Because when I do that, then it does that. So I'm going to stop that. All right, so today, I'm here this evening to talk to you about assessment for next year, our assessment plan for the district, but I want to give you a quick update for assessment for this school year. So we do have our spring assessment season is upon us. We have the ACT, MAP, EOCs, AP exams that are all still going to be happening this year, and they will all be required to be on campus. So we are planning for that and doing everything, following all of our safety protocols and COVID schedules and all of that. So that will include our virtual students, as well as our students in our TEARS program. And more information will be coming from your buildings on that. DESI is exploring a waiver on the participation rate, but right now we haven't heard back on that. So we're still going to be aiming to have full participation. And if we need to, if it starts to, we drop below the targeted participation rate and it impacts our accountability, we will need to do some fall administration as well, which is a new thing. So that's just a quick assessment update for this year. So for next year, we'll be following, I'm sorry. Hang on. Sorry. I picked everybody out of the house except for him. Thought he was fine. So our assessment plan will be following the same. The full document and plan is attached, I believe, for you. So just to know what's in there, I added our dyslexia screening and some diagnostic assessments that we've used, because in the past we've kept the assessment plan for, it's typically been that kind of universal, everyone, all of our bigger assessments, but we decided it'd be nice to have an official document that had all of our assessments that are available to us. And so we've added, and the dyslexia ones are required by law. So you'll see a lot more assessments added this year, but they are not new assessments. I've just now included them in our plan so that it's all in one place. So if you're looking to do some interventions and need to know what's available, it's all right here. Oh, and we also reinstated or brought back our ACT Aspire, which is our nationally normed career and college readiness aligned assessment that we did not do this year. So it was not in the assessment plan. This is our matrix of assessments, and you'll see the new row down here, the diagnostic screener. So all of those assessments have been used in the past. We just are incorporating them now into our assessment plan. So it's here for everybody. And you can see we try to give our capture across the board in all the different subject areas. And you see a lot of them are repeated, so we can have some consistency among grade levels and content areas. This is our calendar of assessments. These again are kind of our main big assessments that we're planning for as a district, making sure that we plan for these throughout our school year here. We oftentimes follow that beginning, middle, and end, as you can see here with our planning. The color codes on those just kind of represents these different tiers of assessments that we have. So we have these kind of bigger gatekeeper, impact your your futures, kind of ACT, AP exams, those kinds of assessments up there at that top of our tier there. And then we've got this middle ground that kind of overlaps sometimes with that bottom level. But that's where we have our accountability. So that the MAP, the EOC, the WIDA, the Access, that ACT Aspire and STAR. And then down here, more that individual level, diagnostic, intervention, all of those assessments are down here on this bottom tier. Are there any questions about our assessment plan for next year or our current assessment for this year?
Rachel, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, so forgive me. How did the assessment test go last year? I know that was a struggle for everyone because we were doing it virtually. Hopefully that won't be the case for the spring, but just how did that go? And I don't know if there's something that we can do to help so it's not as stressful for everyone.
So we did not actually last spring. We didn't do MAP or EOC exams. We did AP exams. Is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of
in the fall.
Testing in the fall. Yeah.
So that was our STAR administration, and that was all virtual. So it was on Zoom and STAR, and that was that's our internal benchmark that we use. That's a computer adaptive assessment. It's a little bit of a different assessment tool, and it was stressful at times because of that, trying to proctor and the technology load, but we won't be doing the virtual MAP and EOC and all of that will be in person.
Okay.
And that's a desi requirement. They have not allowed any virtual assessments.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay. There's going to be assessments happening for a while because we've got them spread out to have small groups to accommodate, 9 to 10 kids in a classroom. And we got our AM and our PM sessions, and it's a lot. And we're going to offer, like on the virtual days, have that for our virtual students to be able to come in. So I think we'll be all right. It's just gonna take a lot of planning, as everything has this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Roxana, is there any update around just the advocacy that superintendents are doing with DESI?
Yeah, so we have been working with DESI kind of tirelessly to try to get some assessment waivers for various things. They have come out with their final ruling, so every school district is required to go ahead and give the MAP and EOC tests. They are requiring that to be on site. They are requiring even virtual students to assess. They have written a waiver to the federal government to lower our L&D slightly, but not by a whole lot, which means we still have to find and encourage every student to test. And then if we would miss our L&D mark at a grade level or for the district, they will have a fall testing window where we will be required to test any student who refused testing this spring. So we're going to work really hard with every family to try to make it as painless as possible and to do it as safely as possible. We have spent many meetings and sent multiple letters to the state, and this is where they've landed. So that's what we'll be required to do this year.
Thanks. Other questions for Rachel?
I was going to ask Rachel, was there any specific date that was scheduled to do the testing, or we're still waiting?
Yeah, so right now, some of the states that are set already are the EOC. That's a national set date. That's April 21st. It's that
I think you meant the ACT.
What did I say?
EOC.
Sorry, ACT. They're all in my brain right now. So the ACT is April 21st, that Wednesday. We chose a Wednesday so we could bring our juniors on campus and have ample space to spread them out and have small testing groups, because that is a one-day ACT day. And then other than that, AP exams are also preset, but they actually provided some flexibility, and which was really helpful for us this year because we started late. So they actually have 3 different testing windows. And so our teachers and our team we just picked which date worked best for each class. So those range from May through June, depending on the content area. And then the MAP and EOC, they open as early as April 5th, I believe, and end May 28th. And we will be spreading our testing out between the 3 buildings. Again, just what works for the building. And we're trying to be, as Roxana hinted at, as painless as just fit it in as naturally as we can as an activity that we do throughout the day. So yeah, it'll be the month of April and May.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And we will be getting scores back from the MAP and the EOC. They have told us that as well. So
Okay.
like the individual students and the teachers will be able to get some information back from that.
Ask them how quickly we'll get that back.
I did ask that question, Katie. They promised us that we would get it back 30 days after administration. So we'll see how they do.
EOCs they've said they'll stick to their 5 business day window, but
We'll see.
yes, so.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for your work on this. There's always a lot of moving parts, extra
right.
moving parts this year. Thank you.
That's right. And if you guys have any questions on the bigger document, please send them my way. Thank you.
Our next study item is actually a presentation from a number of administrators with special school district. We, I believe, have a number of folks who are joining us this evening. Hello, Mr. Gleason.
Good evening, Mrs. Kaufman. Yes, this is Ben Gleason, the special education coordinator for the district. Tonight, I am really here just to welcome and introduce 2 of SSD's leaders. First, Ms. Chiquita Mack-Riddle, who is the Executive Director of Partner Districts for Special School District, and also Dr. Tammy Yates, Assistant Executive Director of Partner Districts. And they are here to share some updates and current thinking that's going on at a countywide level. And then I will be back again in April to share some specific updates regarding special education programming in MRH itself. So I will let them take it from here.
Thank you, Ben.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Chiquita McRiddle, Executive Director of Partner Districts. It's great to be a part of this meeting tonight and to share information with you. Myself and Dr. Yates will be presenting this information on behalf of Dr. Keenan. Dr. Keenan is participating in a board retreat this evening and will not be participating in this discussion with your board tonight. Any questions that you do have for Dr. Keenan, we will be certain to share those questions directly with her and provide a response back to you. At this time, we will move forward with the presentation as Ben has shared with you. And so our purpose today is to just share a brief overview of special education and the services that we provide throughout the county. We'll talk a little bit about our data trends. We'll talk about our work that we've done within equities, as well as how we will continue to support and work with Maplewood Richmond Heights.
Thank you, Ms. McRiddle. So just a little information about special education and what we provide across the county. So the state of Missouri recognizes 14 disability categories. These all have criteria when we are looking to identify a child with a disability. We can look at one of these 14 categories. When we look at the special education process, because that is one of our jobs as partners, is ensuring that we are following the special education process with fidelity and compliance. So we look at the 7 steps that we're to follow, starting with our interventions, our MTSS model that we always look for, prior to step 2, which would be a referral for a student to be evaluated for special education. If that child does need to be evaluated, we look at step 3, that is completing that testing and looking for potential identification in one of those 14 disability categories. Step 4 is we determine eligibility based on those criteria. If a child does qualify, we move into step 5, where we develop that IEP. From there, we're required to implement that IEP with fidelity, which is step 6. And then every 3 years, we're required to consider the need for a potential reevaluation, which is step 7.
I am sorry.
That's okay. Okay. So when a child identifies with a disability and we develop an IEP, there are several different levels of service or placement that we can look at. We have just outlined the 3 main ones that we tend to look at in our partner districts. Of course, we look at the least restrictive model, which is always to have our students in our general education setting. They can remain in the general education setting and receive supports and services from a special ed teacher through a co-taught model or class within a class, where the special education teacher pushes into the general ed environment. If a child needs another level of support, we can look at a pull-out model, which would be in our resource classroom, where they could be pulled out for whatever amount of time and whatever level of service the IEP deems appropriate. For our students with more significant needs, we do have classrooms within the general education building that may provide multiple areas of content and instruction in special education, which we tend to call our self-contained classroom. So these all can move within our partner districts, and students can participate in one or more of these service delivery models. Another level of support we have on top of the special education services is a student may qualify for related service. And what that is those are those services that may be related to the child's disability and services where they require additional support. So some of the areas that may fall under related services could be that language therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, social work for some of our students with social emotional needs, and many other options there based on what the student needs. One other added level support, what we call supplementary aids and services. And these are the services that may not technically be related to the child's disability, but services in these areas is required for that child to make progress. And so some of our supplementary aids and services that you may be familiar with is that would be if a child requires adult support. Throughout the setting, we have some children that require assistive technology devices for augmentative communication. For our students that are visually impaired or hearing impaired, it may require vision and hearing services.
And at this time,
sorry,
go ahead. Thanks, Dr. Yates. And at this time, I'll talk with you a little bit about the work that we are doing in district to focus on equity. And what you have before you is our equity statement. This is our core value. Every student, regardless of learning ability or socioeconomic status, deserves access to the services that they need to be successful. And so through our internal study, we are developing a framework to support all districts across the county. We want to ensure that we focus on caseloads and minutes of students across the county, looking at the rates of identification, as well as least restrictive environment and student proficiency rates. We want to ensure that we understand the inequities that exist in schools with throughout the county, with historically underrepresented, underserved, as well as marginalized groups. And so we will ensure that there is a focus on those districts that have higher rates of poverty, as well as those marginalized groups of students, as we've expressed. Through our internal study, we know that there is a large variance in mobility rates across the county that range from 8.6% in Rockwood to 43.5% in Normandy. When we focused on those poverty rates across the county, we note that there is 9% free and reduced lunch to 100% free and reduced lunch rates throughout the county. Less than 5% of our families are living in poverty in 8 of our districts that are listed there. But also 8 partner districts have over 25% of their families living in poverty and are 100% free and reduced lunch. We have included those districts there for your reference as well. Bayless, as well as Ridner, are school districts that have the largest proportion of ELL learners for a district, and we want to ensure that we also focus on students in that category as well. Through this study, we focused on the Distressed Communities Index, and this allowed us to tier our school districts and focus on those specific needs. What you have before you is a heat map that shows you our distressed, at risk, as well as districts that are considered mid-tier, comfortable, and prosperous. The DCI is used by many organizations as well as local entities and state entities to target services and programs to support communities that are in need. As we take this information into reference with the work that we are doing with special school districts, we are focusing on all, some, and few. We use this approach to build our budgets and worked collectively with each of our partner districts as we approached our budgets from a zero-based standpoint. We wanted to look not only at what everyone needed, but also those additional needs as we've talked about through our study. So through that, we have developed 3 tiers. Tier 1 is what we will focus on for all schools, developing a framework to support all districts, ensuring that we focus on case management, caseloads and minutes, as well as ensuring that all schools have the staff and supports to meet the needs of all students. In Tier 2, this is some schools and programs, and in this particular category, the focus is on disproportionate and targeted schools. We want to ensure that we develop a framework to support partner districts that are identified in these categories and ensure that we are focusing on specific needs as well as social emotional, literacy, as well as numeracy. In Tier 3, this is few schools and programs, and this framework will support districts across the county as we continue to work and understand the inequities that exist. And we want to ensure that we review and focus on mobility, trauma, special education identification rates, proficiency in both reading and math, rates of poverty, and again, focusing on those underserved as well as underrepresented groups. Dr. Yates will lead us in the conversation and talk about checks and balances in each of our partner districts.
So as we look at strengthening that partnership between SSD and our partner districts, as Ms. McRiddle talked about all those other areas, one thing we want to make sure is that we have an effective system of checks and balances. So we look at that at 2 levels, first being the building level. And so the stakeholders that we look at are our general ed teacher, our special ed teacher and related service providers, our school counselor, our building administrators, and our SSD area coordinator. And so working together as a collaborative team to ensure that all students have access to the appropriate curriculum and materials, that we're implementing that tiered intervention system of supports, that we have all stakeholders participating in that special ed process with IEP meetings and reevaluations, that we're ensuring IEPs are implemented with fidelity and we're providing our students with a free and appropriate public education, as well as taking that effective data and sharing that in order to make decisions. And then the building administrators and SSD area coordinator working together to look at staff allocation and that's effective for your district and what's needed for your students. Looking at space allocation, ensuring that our staff and students have adequate space. And then also that collaboration on professional development to see how we at SSD can support what initiatives and PD needs you have in Maplewood or Richmond Heights. So then our next level of checks and balances will be that district level. And so the stakeholders we look at are SSD area coordinator once again, and the SSD director, which of course, Mr. Gleason is both of those for you guys. Our partner district liaison, the SSD executive director team of me and Ms. McRiddle, and then the superintendents for both districts. And so all those same areas looking to support at just a higher level. And then additionally adding technology, making sure that we are adding the technology necessary for our staff and students to be successful. And also that shared responsibility in regards to our transportation needs for our students that need transportation as a related service. So ways that we are trying to increase that collaboration with partner districts, many of the systems that we already have in place, starting from the superintendent level all the way down. Dr. Keenan has worked really hard this past year to work with partner district superintendents with roundtable and individual meetings. Ms. McRiddle and I and the directors and the liaisons have worked hard with that partner district collaboration at the building level and also the district level, really building those collaborative relationships and partnerships. Our teaching and learning department is that added level of support we had where we can offer a plethora of resources such as our effective practice specialists, supplementing that professional development, and also providing many instructional resources. Then our technology department has really had to up our game like everybody else with the pandemic and ensuring that our staff and students have the necessary laptops, hotspots if needed, and have also added a support hotline for staff and students to access to troubleshoot any technology needs. And finally, our PTA department, which is our Parent Education and Diversity Awareness Department, is really trying to increase our family engagement and offering our families support, whether it be resources, problem solving, trainings and workshops, active participation in our Parent Advisory Council, and offering leadership opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Yates. And so I will share with you some of the numbers for special school district and special education. The number of students that we are currently servicing is 22,661. Our identification rate is 16.41%. 67.4% of the students we service are males, where 32.6% are females. When we focus on the least restrictive environment, we know that this is the law, and we know that we must ensure that students have the opportunity to have as much access as possible to regular classes in the general ed setting. So when we take a look at countywide numbers for the least restrictive environment, and this is 80% or more of the time spent in general ed, 68.1% of our students are participating in this particular category, where 21% of our students are receiving 80% in special education, and 7.2% of our students are in special education more than 80% of the time. When we focus on data trends, looking at the teacher-student ratio, we know that our county average is 13. And when we focus specifically on Maplewood, Richmond Heights, the student-teacher ratio is 11.93%. The services by district as ratio of students of teachers, you have that information listed to your right. This is overall for the county. Through our focus and our study, we know that teachers, we have 10 teachers throughout the entire county that has a caseload of 25 students on their caseload, whereas 38 of our teachers have 20 to 24 students. And as you can see, those numbers ranging from 15 and lower are there as well too. Through our study of inequities and working with the zero-based budget in collaboration with each of our partner districts, we have addressed each of these areas to support all districts throughout the county. Are there any questions?
I appreciate the presentation this evening. I think this is the first time in my memory of having SSD administrators outside of Ben attend our meetings and present. So thank you for bringing the information directly from SSD. I know we've had a lot of questions and concerns and challenges, especially over the last year, and I assume that's not unique to the county, but looking forward to working closely with your team as we especially look to support the recovery and kind of return to a more standard looking school year next year.
I just wanted to have you make sure that you express our thanks directly to Dr. Keenan and to both of you, and also the HR department at SSD. You all have been delightful to work with. I feel like we're just really solid partners, and so I'm very appreciative of the work that you're doing and how willing you are to truly partner with us.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I do have a question, and again, I want to thank you as well. When this pandemic hit, obviously no one was ready, right? But there was definitely some missed time with SSD services. Is there a plan for trying to help some of the kiddos during the summer who missed out on those services for a period of time?
Absolutely. And I will allow Dr. Yates to talk a little bit about our Universal Summer Supports Program. She's been working directly with that committee to provide those supports throughout the county.
So, and if you're familiar, every year we normally have ESY, or it's called an Extended School Year Program. And so that will still remain. But for this summer, as a one-time offering due to the pandemic and our students who have been impacted, we're putting on what's called USS, which stands for Universal Summer Supports. And it's really a program set up for those enrichment activities. We're focusing on the 3 areas of literacy, numeracy, and social emotional learning. And so we're asking each of our directors to work with each of their partner districts to see, one, what type of summer programs you're already offering. And if we can then supplement and partner with you to provide some USS, or if we need to have a full day program. But it runs through the month of June. And so our goal is for it to run Monday through Thursday, June 7th through July 1st. And I'll let Mr. Gleason talk about this in a second because it may look a little different in Maplewood or Richmond Heights. But we kind of set some general parameters, and those were the general parameters. Like I said, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3:30, approximately full day program. But like I said, we're giving each district autonomy to work together and partner to see if we can need to adjust that a little bit, because the one thing we don't want to do is for our program to compete with any programs that you may already be offering. So I don't know if Mr. Gleason, I don't know how far along you guys are with that planning, if you would like to add anything.
Sure. Well, given our late start, we are actually on June 7th. So our Universal Summer Supports dates will be a little bit later.
Okay.
And we're actually targeting June 21 through July 9. Although the countywide expectation is Monday through Thursday, we're planning on a Monday through Friday program, likely 8 to 3. And we've already had some conversation. I've had some conversation with Ms. Meacham, with Mr. Estrada, our liaison, Mr. Flores, the summer school principal. So we've already started planning, and we've got some staff who are interested, still interested in recruiting some more staff to support this program. But we are moving along with our planning. And just to clarify, there are, of course, students who are eligible for extended school year, as comes from an IEP division. USS is open to any child with an IEP, regardless of any other factors. There's not a qualification process. It's open to any students whose families would like them to participate.
Dr. Gleason, 2 quick follow-up questions as well. When should parents expect to hear about the ESY?
Enrollment letters were mailed about 10 days ago. So if families did not receive those in the mail, they should contact their child's case manager or me directly, so we can make sure that a replacement enrollment letter is sent. And as soon as families can indicate their plans about whether they want their child to participate in ESY or not, we'd appreciate that feedback so we can continue our planning.
Okay. And my second question is, was information about the USS included in that, or should they be expecting to receive that separately?
It was not included in ESY letters. It was included in the March newsletter that was sent out. And then additional information will be going out very shortly because actually the actual enrollment process is opening for families to indicate for sure whether or not they want their child to participate in USS.
Mr. Gleason, I can speak a little bit more on that if you'd like.
Sure.
We sent out a family interest survey a couple months ago just to get an idea of who would be interested, and we kind of got base numbers from there. Since then, we have sent it out in our SSD district-wide newsletter that goes out to families electronically, as well as Mr. Gleason stated, each director has put it in their monthly newsletter. And we also have created a website on our SSD website strictly for USS, and it outlines general information about it, frequently asked questions. And there's also a link for families to register their students and a link for staff to fill out if they're interested in working USS.
Are there any other questions?
I did have one question. I want to thank you all for the presentation, but I was noticing the percentage of male students and female students. There was a large percentage of male students that are receiving your services. Is that a trend that has been going on for quite some time? Or I don't know how far back far as your data shows that. And if so, have you ever broken that down to dealing with children who are of color or other minority students to see if this is something that maybe could be looked at a little bit more closely between male and female students to see why it seemed to be more males needing this service compared to the females? Or is that something that maybe, I don't know if you can do it by district to break it down, or is this just seems to be involving St. Louis County only, as I know you're only doing St. Louis County?
Sure. And so tonight's overview was just a focus on St. Louis County in whole. Our presentation that we have provided to all districts, we do focus in specifically on that partner district. We take a look at their incident rates. We look at those specific ethnicities as well as those gender groups. When Mr. Gleason comes back for the second part of this presentation, he will be sharing information specific to Maplewood, Richmond Heights, and will be able to give you that breakdown of information.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I would add, our breakdown in terms of male, female is comparable to the county breakdown. And I think I'm accurate in saying special ed in general, even outside of St. Louis County, does tend to identify more males than females.
Nationally.
That's a trend nationally. And doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but it's an indication that for whatever reason that is happening, and we're not out of line with the trend anyway. But it is something that continues to be worth looking at more closely for sure. And if there's specific breakdowns of our data specifically in MRH that you would like to see. My data already broken down for the April presentation. If there's something additional or particular groups or subgroups that you would be interested in specifically knowing about, by all means share that with me and I can have that data prepared for you.
That would be helpful, and maybe among certain age groups, if that can be included also in your next presentation.
Certainly.
Okay.
All right. Again, thank you, Ms. McRiddle and Dr. Yates. Appreciate your time this evening. And Mr. Gleason, we will see you next month.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
All right. As the board will recall, We spoke at our work session about support staff starting rates and have a proposal here.
Right, there is not anything new with this proposal, but these are the positions that we would be recommending changes for starting rates based on our county study and also based on our commitment for our minimum wage increases.
Any questions or concerns there? We will continue to work to be competitive and good stewards. All right, and then policy BGBA update.
Right, so the document that's labeled revised policy BGBA reflects the policy changes that we have been discussing based on review of the old policy BGBA. So it would include the update for ComForum and also signaling that the CBTF would be meeting annually. I have worked on those changes with Cindy Ormsby, and I believe they were up for your perusal at the last board meeting as well, but I did want to call them to your attention again before we ask you to vote on it.
All right, yes, I think we'll continue to work to have our form follow the function here, so that's great. We can move on then to admin communication on our COVID data.
What would a board meeting be without COVID data? Let me share my screen and we will take a look at the COVID data for the week. So we've been doing these reports now for many, many months. When we look at the COVID data, I will preface this the same way that I prefaced it with our staff. The data is looking really good compared to where we were. So if you remember our tiers chart, we were in the high red and then we were in the orange and now we are in the yellow, which is exactly the direction that we would want to see. The rates did come up slightly this week from last week. So we are seeing not significantly, they're relatively flat, but they are a little higher than they were last week for the county and the state. The state, for whatever reason, started separating the PCR and the antigen tests. And so we've had a little fluctuation in our data sources in terms of what we are seeing from CSD and from the state. The probable cases have not been reported in that way. And so for this week, we are reporting the PCR in our 14-day and 7-day data because that is what we are still getting from Ed Plus and we believe to be the correct data. We're checking on some things. What is problematic about reporting both in this way is that many people get the rapid antigen test first and then go back and get the PCR test for the confirmation. And so we think there may be a double count. So I just want to point that out of why both of those are showing when they have not been in the past. And I think we're working with the folks who maintain the databases in the county to make sure that you know, all of that is as consistent for you as it can possibly be. So those rates are remaining flat. One of the things that we've talked to the staff about this week, and I think it would be worth saying for anybody watching at home in terms of our community, part of the reason the case rates are dropping so rapidly is that folks are really have been doing a really good job following mitigation strategies. And so we're just reminding everyone, our staff, our students, to continue to follow those mitigation strategies at home and wherever you're going on spring break. If folks see good numbers, the weather's warm, if everybody goes out and behaves as if COVID never happened, then the numbers go back up and then we are, you know, not in the direction we want to reopen schools. So stay the course. I sent out a community message this week that pretty much said the same thing. But right now, these numbers look pretty good. Our transmission rate is still below 1 for both the state and the county. They really haven't moved in several weeks, excuse me. When we look at our new case rates, you'll see our new case rates, again, are still looking really good. The cases per 100,000 for the 7-day is at 61 currently, and for the 14-day at 113. When we look at the positivity rates in terms of the percent of tests that are positive of all tests taken, those are actually, I think, the lowest we've seen in a while. So the positivity rates are low. Testing has remained relatively high. When we look at our zip code data, these are almost exactly as they were last week. I think we went up in one of the zip codes and down by one in the other, but that's remaining fairly stable. The school age dashboard was not operable at the time that this report was printed. I did get a peek in there today briefly while it was up for a few minutes, and it looks like those rates are fairly consistent. So the current risk level for school age students still is in the yellow. We got a little bit of good movement for the 15 to 19-year-olds. They're currently still in the orange. But again, those case rates for students are lower than they are for the general population in the county. When we look at the positive cases within the MRH school district boundaries, so this would be for any school age student within our boundaries, these are exactly the same numbers that you saw last week. They have not changed in the last 7-day period. Positive cases at MRH, we currently have 1 staff member and 1 student that has been identified as an active case. And we have quarantined 2 staff members and 13 students in the past week, all as a result of off-campus exposure. When we look at vaccines, we've made progress. About 3% more people at the state and county level have been vaccinated since last week. There were also, I think, in addition to the dropping case rates, a couple pretty significant things that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of this week. The first one is over the weekend, and I've been telling you that the CDC has been doing some research in Missouri schools, including St. Louis area schools. They have not published their data yet, but a study was published by Harvard in the Boston area schools. And I believe we're seeing the same conclusions, which is that 3 feet of distance between students who are properly masked and following other mitigation measures in school can be equally effective to 6 feet of distance. And that really is a game changer for schools. It will be a game changer for MRH, because part of the reason that we are in the hybrid model is because we could not make the distance work with our limited spaces. So, the contact tracing team, the COVID team and the head principals have been very busy behind the scenes within the last month. This week, actually the last 2 days, I have walked every building with the head principals. We've had Vince and his team measuring desks and looking at furniture configurations. And with the exception of 1 classroom in the middle school and 1 classroom in the high school, we believe that we could get a full classroom of students in with the 3 feet of distance. So assuming case rates stay low, that's very promising news for us and where we would like to move in the future. So on April 5th at the work session, we'll be bringing you those comprehensive plans of what that looks like, along with some pictures and diagrams of what that planning could look like, and specifically what those changes might mean in a classroom. We also got exciting news in that tomorrow, all of our staff members that would like to have a vaccine will be vaccinated by the Visiting Nurses Association, which is really fabulous. Also would like to give a huge thank you to Amy Hamilton and the Heights, who have included us in their ongoing vaccination efforts for anyone who misses tomorrow or anyone who later I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied tonight. Anyone who decides later that they would like to have a vaccine after they miss this opportunity, we'll be able to get our teachers connected with their vaccine clinics moving forward. So that's really, really great news on both of those fronts. And so that's kind of where we are with the COVID report. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have.
Roxanna, I just want to clarify something that you said. So on April 1st, which is a Thursday, is a work session where we will be, the board will be able to receive and review the updated recommendations around a tier 1 full return to the school buildings. Obviously, we have seen previous versions of a proposal to that effect, but the realities have changed significantly, not the least of which are CDC recommendations, as well as just our lived experience in the hybrid tier. So we're going to let everybody take a full spring break next week, and then the following week we'll have that ability to kind of deep dive into that information. And my recommendation is that the board would take a vote on that proposal that following Monday, so April the 5th.
Thank you for helping me tonight. I'm very tired. It's hard telling what what may come out of my mouth. That's exactly right. And then one other piece of information that I thought of while you were talking, I do also want to just say to you all, and I know we've sent it out through communications, but the county also changed the quarantine recommendation from 14 days to 10 days. And so we have made those changes in our handbooks and our practice as well, because we have been very closely following county guidance and making sure that we're in alignment with what they're telling folks when they call in quarantine situations. So that also happened this past week.
Roxana, oh, go ahead, Nikki.
No, Brandy, no, go. You're good.
Quick question. Do you know of any schools who are in session but using the 3 feet guideline instead of 6?
There are several school districts who have made that move, and they made that move ahead of guidance. But yes, there are several area schools who have all of their students on campus currently.
If any of that data is available, you already give us such thorough reports, so I'm not trying to give you a bunch of extra work, but I would like to see what the numbers are with spread in those districts, if possible, in the report you bring to us on April 1st.
What I will not have area schools, I can direct you to the study that was published that from Harvard with transmission rate and spread. The St. Louis area school study has been completed. I do not have access to that data, and it has not yet been released as a published document.
Okay.
I've heard from the people who participated in the study and the epidemiologists, they have verbally told us what that data is, but it does seem to confirm that transmission rates are not affected with that change.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Roxana, can you give us the timeline for our teachers who want to receive the vaccine? Like, I know the first day that they'll get it. Will you just share with us the second?
Yes, so they will be getting the first dose tomorrow. The second dose will be given on April 16th, which is also a Friday non-student attendance day.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Other questions about COVID update? Like I said, we will dig in even more deeply on April 1st. And again, very thankful that we have the opportunity to bring the vaccine on site tomorrow for all our educators and staff who choose to receive it. All right, we'll move in then to the April 6th election preparations because we are a polling site. Go ahead, Mr. Whelan.
Thank you and good evening. As in years past, our elementary school is used by St. Louis County Board of Elections as a polling site. And polling will be held in the elementary gym. You probably thought, how is that going to happen with the recent damage done? And I'll get into that more in the next topic. But the county elections, and they started this for the general election in November, what they call an early setup procedure to facilitate on-time readiness when at 6 o'clock when the polls open. And the election officials who will be working on the day of the election will come the day before on Monday and to set up the gym to their specifications. B&G team will have all tables, chairs on site prior to the officials coming in to set up their gym. Lead custodian Eric Bell will greet the poll workers on Tuesday at 5 a.m. in preparation for their 6 a.m. opening. Like we did last year, or back in November, introduces himself to the two judges, gives his cell phone number so that if they have any issues during the course of the day, we can very rapidly respond and service and take care of what needs they may have. The voter entrance will be as it was in November through the two sets or the double set of doors in the southwest corner of the gym, adjacent to Princeton Place. When the voters exit, they'll also exit at the same set of doors. The Glade Circle and Princeton Place entrances will be locked to visitors, and the gates separating the vestibule into the classrooms will be pulled down. Voters and election officials will use the two restrooms there in the lobby. Tuesday evening after the polls close and finishing up Wednesday morning, a thorough sanitation sweep of all spaces and district equipment will occur. And that was, of anything used for the election, and that will be conducted with our own staff. Due to the recent fire suppression pipe break, the gym floor was damaged beyond repair. We've been working with our insurance carrier, Gallagher Bassett, Catco Environmental, and Missouri Flooring to expedite a complete wood floor replacement in time for the election. As we will not have time enough to get the final coat and paint in the lines and everything, what's going to happen the Friday before the election, they will remove all items that they're still working with to complete the floor and cover the whole floor up so that the green wood, basically it's unfinished final maple flooring, won't be marred during the election. And then they'll finish the following couple of weeks. Does anyone have any questions? It should run extremely smooth. At least that's what the planner thinks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Whelan. Appreciate the update. We can move on to your general buildings and grounds report.
Well, thank you. I won't introduce myself again then. In this buildings and ground update, I will provide an update on the owner-managed capital projects that are planned to be completed this summer at the elementary and high school, middle school. I'm also going to talk about, as I said in the previous presentation, what's all happened during the flood that occurred last month's board meeting. First, I'll talk about the replacement schedule for the gymnasium. This week, all the pre-subfloor has been delivered and the installers are in the process of laying that down. That'll take a little bit more than a week. The following week, during next week's spring break, the subfloor will be finished and they'll start laying down the final maple flooring. The week of the 29th, they'll complete the floor will be all down and sanding, that type of thing. As I said, the materials will all be removed so we can have the election. The week of April 12th, game lines and finish will be applied to the floor. The following week, the base perimeter and thresholds will go in, and everybody will stay off one more week to make sure everything cures just right. And the week of April 26th, the gym floor will be turned over, a brand new floor, to the elementary for their use. Let's talk a little bit about the water damage. With all the cold that we had, when it started warming up, fire suppression pipe split in the roof of the Princeton Place entrance foyer and spread water before the water could be turned off. Went into the gym, the main office, library, and the entrance hallway. The water was turned off as quickly as we could before it got throughout the whole bottom floor, or first floor. I have to say the Richmond Heights Fire Department quickly responded and proceeded to pull down the grid and ceiling tiles in the foyer, and then quickly drain the fire suppression system. Without that, they could not have Gateway Fire Suppression could not have repaired things. Once Gateway came within an hour and a half, they made the repairs, refilled the system, and later in the evening, they reset the fire alarm. Catco Environmental also responded immediately, and they went and sucked up as much water as they could and brought in all kinds of dehumidifiers and blowers to dry out everything. One of our big concern was with the water getting into the drywall. They took tests, and we were very lucky. As quickly as we got the water up, there was no excess humidity behind the walls, so we did not have to gut out like 2.5 feet up drywall in the areas that might have gotten damaged, and that really minimized the scope of damage. The insurance company is covering all the damage less our deductible. And Chris, I think that's $1,000, if I can recall. Maybe might have changed in the last 2 years. I'd like to talk about the owner-managed capital projects. In the last, over the last several months, Itner has been extremely thorough and comprehensive on the reports to the board and to the district of all the work that's going on. One of the things, though, that was not mentioned, and it's extremely important that I mention this right now, that we're at the end of the WTI capital projects. Itner calls them the owner-managed projects. I call them what we have to take care of. So this summer, in addition to all the extensive work going on in the elementary, all the windows in all classrooms are being replaced, and plus the skylight is being replaced, and a replacement of the all this rooftop HVAC units. At the high school and middle schools, in addition to starting our projects, we're also replacing all the windows in the existing part of the building into the classrooms. At next month's B&G report, I plan to share my initial logistical planning to have each school prepared for the start of the 21-22 school year. Does anyone have any questions?
I'd just like to thank you, Mike. I know this has been an incredibly challenging week for you and your crew as you've had so many folks that were out and dealing with bus logistics and making sure that we had staffing for disinfecting, and your team really pulled that off under very difficult circumstances. I know we had some challenges for some families with a few of the bus runs, but you guys were just very thorough and methodical, and I appreciate you more than you know.
Well, thank you. I will be more than happy to share that with the staff who were the true ones who pulled it off. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving into calendar updates. Ed, go ahead and.
This will take 20 seconds. So items 4.04 and 4.05 are unchanged from when they appeared on the study portion of the February agenda. I'll just remind you that the 21-22 calendar revision reflects a preference by teachers to conduct their final record-keeping day on the Monday in June after the last day of school in exchange for being off on President's Day. And the same holds true for the 22-23 proposed calendar. And that's what we're looking at.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the work to keep us ahead of the crush of other things. So great. We can move then into the finance reports. Chris, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I will pull this up and share some of it. Okay, so the items of interest outline the large categories of both our revenues and our expenditures. We are trending right about where we should. Local revenues are down slightly, but that's primarily due to our preschool and Discover Club programs, as well as collection of student lunch fees. County is right about where it's supposed to be at this time in the year. We're still waiting on our state assessed railroad and utilities tax, which, as I mentioned it, I believe that began coming in yesterday or today. So a little spoiler for next month. State revenues are right about where they should be, although they are lower than where we were last year this time. But you'll remember some of our state payments came in across the year. And since we are cash basis accounting, we have to record the revenue in the month in which it was received. So that does skew the numbers from time to time. And this is one example of that. Our federal revenue is slightly less than where it has been, even with our CARES monies. That's primarily due to our federal lunch reimbursements being less than what they would be if we had students in session for the full year. Or excuse me, from the beginning of the year through now. Otherwise, our revenue is in good shape. Debt service fund tracks right along with our local revenues, our current taxes. So everything is in good shape there. And I always like to show this chart representing the division of our revenue sources, 84% local, which does include our local taxpayers. So again, thank you taxpayers for allowing us to do this wonderful work for your children. Coming on to the expense side, I'm actually going to skip down to the object level. Salaries and benefits are trending right about where they ought to be. Position control helps us greatly in that regard. Purchase services, we've been discussing this each month, are about half where they were this time last year related to COVID, less travel. Professional development is a big piece of what this district is known for, and we've not been able to go on some of those professional development opportunities that we've been able to go on in the past. Athletics is also some of those items that were not needed that first half of the year. So all in all, we're about 50% of where we would be if this were a typical year. Supplies are also low, and That's primarily due to instructional resources not being needed since students were not here in person until January. Capital outlay is about where we would expect to see it. We have moved most of the capital projects that Mike just outlined to our bond projects. So for the next couple of years, you will not see them here and to the same extent that you would in typical years. Our long and short-term debt, our principal and interest payments are complete for the year. And we actually just made those not too long ago. So we are about where we ought to be at this point. And here's the breakdown of our operating funds. 75% of our salary, of our expenditures are directly related to salaries and benefits, and the rest is distributed 12% purchase service, 11% supplies, 3% capital, and debt makes up the smallest portion. Right now, we are budgeting for about a 38.4, 38.5% fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. However, I do believe we're going to end better than that. Once I have a truer look at that, we'll adjust this budget accordingly. Are there any questions? All right. Okay, with your permission, I'll just keep rolling here.
Please do.
And budget development, okay. You know, I love budget season. However, this particular budget has been more challenging than some of the others that I've had the pleasure to prepare. That's mostly related to a pandemic and having skewed numbers from the adjusted budgets for this year, as well as uncertainty about some of our expenditures and also our revenues. However, we did get some updated numbers from the county, so I'll briefly update the revenue numbers for you. Assessed valuation growth, this is a reassessment year. We were surprised to see that we still had above modest growth on the residential side of our assessed valuation for an increase of 14%. Commercial also increased 14.8%. So in spite of the economy, things still tended to be on the increase as far as assessed valuations. Personal property was a little surprising, however. We did receive both on the manufacturing side and also on the personal property side, regular personal property side, a dramatic decline in those. So I will leave the speculation as to why that happened to you, but one could see that in a pandemic that certain things were either not purchased or sold. So that could be a potential cause to this. But again, those numbers just came out. We've not had the opportunity to explore, but we are looking right now, preliminary numbers now, about a 9% decrease in personal property and manufacturing. Our sales tax, or Prop C, we budgeted 1.3 million this year. We're budgeting a slight increase for the following year, and that's based on $1,025 per student. That's the desi projection right now. We are currently budgeting significantly less than that. I believe it's $1,006 on that Prop C, but we'll see how it goes. The state's saying that we may end up better than that, but again, we're going to remain on the conservative side and assume that perhaps they will not end where they hope to. Basic formula will be increasing slightly. Our adequacy target remains at 6,375. It's been there for a couple of years now. We will expect to increase basic formula payments by about $266,000. And the proration factor is at 94.2%. That number moves around and the state keeps us up to date as that number changes as the years go on, as the year progresses. So this is a breakdown of the revenue and how it goes. I've bolded the budget 22 column. The revenues are looking relatively healthy coming into the next year. So that is promising. We do have some revenue on here that is not yet presented on the budget, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit more and show you what that looks like. But we are expecting the ESSER II funds. We have not put those numbers into the budget yet. I felt like it was just a little bit premature. We've not yet decided how we are going to distribute those. We have through 2023 to expend those funds. And Roxana, I, and our federal programs consultants are debating on the best way to go about doing that. So once we make that decision, I'll put those numbers in the budget for you to see. But it should be a little north of $500,000 that we would be able to add in either one or multiple fiscal years budgets. Wonderful implications for each of those decisions. So here's the graph that represents what I just displayed in a chart form. Okay, then we get to our expenditures, which is why I'm really doing this presentation in the first place. I was just excited because we got updated numbers from the county and I wasn't necessarily expecting them yet. So here we go. We're looking at about a 3% increase to salaries for the next fiscal year. And that is due to, we've been giving you updates related to CBTF, and you'll get another one this evening from Wes. But we're right now projecting for teachers as they advance through their salary schedule, a 2.75% increase, as well as an increase to the base salary schedules, and a 2.75 increase to administrator and support staff salaries. We are a member of the CSD Insurance Trust. This is about our health benefits, and that helps us with buying power as we shop around for the best rates on insurance. Part of that trust means that we are a contributor. We are also a consumer, and our rates each year are based on a 3-year rolling claims to ratio ratio. So for within those 3 years rolling average that we're in right now, we have had some increased medical claims. As a result, we are in the top tier as far as the premiums are concerned. So we will expect to receive a 7.5 increase to our medical insurance premiums for the next fiscal year. And overall, in the state of Missouri and likely other states, our board paid medical and dental benefits are included in the calculation for retirement. So a 7.5 increase to medical benefits does not correlate to a 7.5% increase in benefits overall. There's other things in that benefits category other than our health benefits, and that is retirement. So overall, about a 9% increase to our benefits category. This is where things began to get a little challenging. So I beg your pardon as I hope to explain this simply. Our purchase service budget as it stands now is decreasing 7% from our current budget. However, it's a little deceptive because our current budgets have been adjusted to accommodate expenses related to COVID that typically wouldn't have been there. So our purchase service and supplies budgets, since it's the same sermon for both of these categories, are overly inflated as compared to a typical year. So really you have to look back one more year and then increase that 3 or 4%, and that's about where we ought to be. So these numbers, like on the supply side, a decrease of 17%. Well, the supplies budget was increased significantly. If you take out that COVID year, you'll see a more smooth increase to our purchase service and supply and what you would expect to see in typical years. I've said that a lot tonight. Probably the word of the year, typical year. Capital outlay, that is quite a bit down compared to other years. We are still going through the budget with a fine-tooth comb. As a matter of fact, we still need to review thoroughly both the technology and the buildings and grounds budgets. Although accounted for in these models, we do need to go through and scrutinize those. So I'll bring you a more focused look next month at what those expenditures are going to be. You've heard me say in the prior months as we came into budget season that everything's running just a little behind as far as the timeline is concerned. And that is represented in a couple of the budgets not being fully scrutinized yet. However, our debt payments, those are fixed. So we have a really good idea. Those will be right around $4.2 million for principal and interest payments coming into the following year. Here are the numbers. So salaries and benefits, as we discussed, And other than my off-center graph, sorry about that, here's where I will show you the bottom line and how this corresponds. Right
Chris,
now,
screen is not shared.
oh, Ed, I was sorry about that. I do want to share this screen though. Wait for it. There it is. Okay. So right now we are budgeting about a $75,000 deficit on the budget as it relates to expenditures versus revenue. However, like I said, we have yet to add the ESSER II funds. Those are not represented in this budget. What is represented in this budget, however, is some of the staffing positions that we added as are directly related to COVID and the support of our students, both in virtual learning and also in the hybrid model, and will also remain important in Tier 1 and through the next school year. So those positions are still in the budget for the next year, and that does increase expenditures quite significantly. We do intend to use those ESSER funds to offset some of those additional COVID staffing positions that we've added. So this budget will hopefully look not $75,000 on the deficit side, but rather on the positive side. And again, next month, I'll bring you a more focused look, and I hope to have this budget a little bit better balanced by the time that meeting rolls around. Regarding next steps, it's time to start working on the budget document. That's the big piece of this. It's a state requirement, and it's also a guide that we use throughout the year. And as mentioned before, we will continue updating the numbers through April. And I've done a number of line-by-line looks, making sure that we have everything accounted for, but I'm still getting some updates from various individuals and departments with things that we need to tweak. We're also going through the building budgets with a fine-tooth comb and making some of those changes that were suggested in their review meetings. So a lot of work yet to do, but we'll bring you another set of numbers in April and see what it looks like then.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate the depth and detail of that presentation. Any questions, anything to pull out?
We have COVID expenditures next, right?
Yes.
All right, I didn't quite like the way this turned out last month, so I made a few adjustments to the report. There's just really not a great way to do this that I found, so I hope this makes sense to you. This is a cumulative look at our COVID expenditures from the beginning of the school year through now, March 17th, actually, so you can see when I ran this report last. So we are $573,000 paid for by the district. We still have about $28,000, almost $29,000 encumbered, which means the expenditures are on the books but not yet posted. Total expenses are about $602,000, offset by $233,000 in COVID-related grants for a net cost to the district of just under $370,000. Not insignificant numbers we're discussing here.
Yeah.
Just some of the financial impact of this pandemic. Okay, I have one more. Oh, that's it. Okay, I will turn the floor back over to you, Katie.
Thanks, Chris. Again, appreciate the excellent financial stewardship. We will move on then to board communication. The calendar has a few items to draw attention to. As we mentioned earlier, the April 1st work session is on the books, followed by a special meeting that is slated for Monday, April 5th at 6:30. Reminding folks that we will have a reorg meeting on April 15th. I see it's held for 7 p.m. or for 6 p.m. I would actually propose that meeting happening at 6:30 p.m. I don't think the reorg will take anywhere near an hour. So Kat, if you could make that adjustment on the calendar, unless there are objections. I did also want to point out that May 6th was proposed for the reschedule for the MAP Center to meet with us. However, that date is not available for the team from the MAP Center. That will be a regular 6:30 p.m. work session to receive the bond or the bid packages from ITNR and potentially other work session items as necessary, but will not be a MAP Center evening. My attempt to reschedule with MAP Center, I have offered April 22nd as a possibility, and just wanted to get a sense of if that is a possibility for the board. If it is not, please let me know. We may need to strategize about a different strategy with the MAP Center. I believe that is all I have on the calendar.
Can I, thank you. I already saw you nod. I just wanted to kind of follow up with our scholarship again and see if I already know Roxana and Ed and Chris. I already know. But just tell me what I can do, if anything, to help. I know you guys are buried, but is there anything I can do to help so we can get that going? And then also I wanted to ask the board, can we not have like a hard stop date on accepting funds for the scholarship? Especially if kids are going to technical school, community college, or a four-year college or university, they're gonna go in the fall. So can we try to get as much money as we can, like through the summer? So I feel like I'm nagging y'all, forgive me. But
So Nikki, Ed put that ball in my court earlier in the week, and I admittedly just have not been able to devote much mental energy to it. I have a lot of thoughts about it though, but that doesn't count. So I'm wondering if Ed and I'll talk tomorrow, and we'll reach out to you and maybe get a conference call together to discuss what I'm thinking, so you can have some clarity and a path forward.
Nikki, I did send you an email on Monday, but I understand how things can get lost in these ridiculously crazy times. So we'll renew the effort tomorrow.
Folks can always make a donation using the donate tab on the district website.
Right.
I was there this week and actually had a lovely exchange with a MRH grad from the class of 48 who reached out inquiring about scholarships. He currently lives in New Mexico, but wanted to be part of some of the work that is happening in the district. So I directed him to our scholarship effort, and maybe we will see some additional alumni support to the Nelson Mitten Scholarship as well.
And honestly, thank you for saying that, Katie. Worst case scenario, we have something that is working. Maybe we just talk about ways to push that out a bit more. So we aren't reinventing the wheel. We aren't starting over from scratch to do something. We just have like a different way of advertising for it. So that too, I'm fine. I just want money for our kids. That's all. And I really feel bad, like I'm nagging y'all. I'm sorry.
No, I feel like that's the direction Chris and I were going in when we talked earlier this week. So, yeah.
Great.
And sorry I missed that email, Ed. Forgive me, please.
Oh, please stop.
Wes, I'll turn it over to you to CBTF update.
Okay, we met, I believe it was last week, and we discussed further the idea of adjusting the salary schedule with the input at the base level across the board. And I believe we reached a consensus on a plan going forward, which will be presented to the board either, I think, for the next workshop or for the next board meeting.
Great. Yes, if there was a year when we wanted to give our staff and our teachers a little bit of a bump, this is a year that we can do it, and we should do it. So,
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
thank you for your leadership in the CBTF team.
My pleasure.
Joe's Place update. Ralph, is there anything to share?
Yes, there is. We had a meeting on March the 1st for about an hour or so. And basically, we were discussing about the website, some changes for the Joe's Place website. There's a proposal that we were looking at for the costs and everything. Also, there was a kind of a change on the MOU for the van that Joe's Place used, but recently the van has been turned back over to the district. So that was handled pretty quickly, but the maintenance and everything was kept up on it. And basically the van wasn't being used that much. But also we talked about some events coming up for the spring possibly. And basically we kind of went into our breakout groups for the different committees dealing with ways to fundraise and identify different resources, talents and things like that. We also want to keep up with our alumni who have graduated from Joe's Place, but we talked about some training for us as board members also. So those are some of the things that we discussed, and there may be some things that we may be able to share later in the spring for us fundraisers with the board and the community. I know there was some talk about possibly doing something virtual in different ways to maybe do fundraising, and some of our supporters, we want to try to reach out to them and kind of give them special thanks and ask them to continue to support us. So there are a lot of different things that are on the table right now. I don't know if Roxanne wanted to share anything along that, but her and Vince and several other board members were part of this meeting on March the 1st.
I think you covered everything fairly well, Ralph.
Okay. Well, if anything happens that I feel like I need to share with you, I will get an email out to everyone.
Ralph, thank you so much for all the work that you are doing with Joe's Place and just being a liaison for us, and Brandy as well. But Ralph, you really just give us the reports all the time and you go all into detail, and I appreciate you both, but I really just wanted to spotlight you, Ralph, and just thank you.
Well, thank you. And I have to apologize for not being able to give you a report last month due to kind of a emergency water break at my church. So maybe Brandy was able to fill you in to some degree, but hopefully we're getting enough information to everyone. And if you got questions, feel free to call me.
I didn't fill them in as thoroughly, Ralph, but I tried in your place.
well, you do a great job. So I appreciate everyone that's involved, Roxana and Vince, who play a big part of this also. So we have several board members, but we realize everybody's schedule does not always click at the same time, but we generally do have at least about probably 6 to 8 board members involved in these meetings. So hopefully we can always make sure someone is available to give you a report.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the stewardship of that important program for the district. Final board action or report before action items is MSBA. Obviously, a lot of things moving or were moving in the state legislature, have remained informed by both our state association and by the administrator newsletters and things. If there's anything, Roxana, that you think we should be aware of at the moment, I have not been tracking it this week, and I think, are they on spring break this week?
They are
or
on
next?
spring break
Okay.
right now. The bill that we were most concerned about, which was Senate Bill 55, has stalled. They have not taken it off the table, but I'm hearing they currently don't have enough votes for it to pass. We're still watching that. We're still talking to our legislators because that would be a bill that would have pose some problems for public schools and for us in particular. There are a number of new bills that came out of committee that are expected to get additional reads, more of them than I care to go through with you tonight. I'll send you some additional reports, but a couple of them that are particularly important to keep your eyes on. And I'm not going to be able to name the exact numbers of them. I don't have that in front of me at this moment, so I won't pretend that I can name the numbers. But there's an open enrollment bill. And that open enrollment bill, which has had several amendments while it's on the floor, still poses some issues in that it essentially opens up students to be able to attend the districts of their choice. It did have a very complicated funding structure that would cause us to expend whatever we were spending on per pupil expenditures into what they were calling a slush fund and all kinds of things that nobody understood. Now districts could accept students or not. Students could leave districts at will. Students could attend school in any school in which their parents own property, regardless of residency. And districts would only receive for student attendance whatever state ADA they were receiving. So for a district like ours, again, that would not cover the cost of instruction. So there's just a lot of things. Misha has said they have a lot of concerns because they, what that does for folks moving districts because of athletics. And so there are still questions with that bill. I believe that MSBA and the District Administrators Association are opposed to the bill in its current forms. There are a couple others that we're watching as well, which would have financial implications. So one would be to require sales tax on internet sales. Missouri is one of 2 states that does not. Obviously, that would be very helpful for the revenue. But that same bill then is also asking to lower income tax, which is one of the primary drivers for the foundation formula. So as it currently stands, it is unclear what that would actually mean for state funding. So we're watching that bill very closely. There is another bill that would have more serious implications for MRH, and that would be around property taxes. And so we're watching that bill as well. And then there's any number of bills that I would not want to guess why they're in existence, but there is one that would require a very, very specific form of reading instruction that wouldn't meet the needs of many students. It would for a very specific group of students, and it's got a lot of very interesting positions. There was a bill that was on the floor, and I'm not really sure where it is, that would require financial penalties for districts that did not do certain forms of compliance, just lots of things that are very specific that I won't go into all of that, but I do encourage each of you to pay attention to what MSBA is putting out. I'll try to keep you informed of things that we think are especially consequential to our district. And as always, we are, as an area regional administrative group, we are continuing to make contact with our state senators and state legislatures to try to keep them fully informed of the impact of the bills. I also sit on the State Education Commissioners Advisory Council, so we are also trying to advocate through that group as well. And this is just a legislative session that, unlike any I have ever seen in my entire career, in terms of the flurry of bills that might impact public education. So we're watching those very, very carefully.
All right, thank you. Are we all right to move on to action items? All right. Can I have a motion on the 2021-2022 academic calendar?
I move to approve the 2021-2022 academic calendar as revised.
Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Nikki. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next calendar revision or calendar.
I move to approve the 2022-2023 academic calendar as presented.
Second. Sorry,
Thank you,
Ralph.
Brandy.
That's
Thank you,
okay.
Ralph. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Summer school.
I move to approve the summer school proposal as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Francis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Communication forum policy.
I move to adopt policy BGBA as modified.
Second.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Wes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And supporting staff starting pay.
I move to approve the support staff starting pay rates as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Wes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to go into executive session.
I move to enter executive session in accordance with section 610.021, subsections 3, 9, and 13, and section 610.022 of the revised statutes of Missouri on March 18, 2021 for the following specific reasons: personnel matters.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Move to executive session.